players. Let's talk about some play on the field. Let's talk about some outstanding individuals. Yeah, let's do a Heisman look, because we ain't done too many Heisman looks on this here show. Because frankly, I don't like Heisman voters. I think the Heisman Trophy is just fine. I just think the Heisman voters don't know what they're doing most of the time, right? It's probably why I don't have a vote. It's because I keep telling them they don't know what they're doing, right? However, there's some really great candidates to win the Heisman Trophy here, and they all play offense. But that's another title for another day. Now, let's start at number 5 and go to 1, talk about some outstanding dudes that need to get some looks in December. At number 5, we got Michael Penix Jr., who is coming off of a really great win against Utah, threw for over 300 yards. He's got, I think, an All-American wide receiver in Rome Odunze. He and Dylan Johnson have a really good relationship in that backfield. It feels kind of cool to have a Kalen DeBoer, Ryan Grubb run offense with Michael Penix Jr. back there throwing passes that can absolutely run the ball, especially here of late. But we're talking about the straw that actually stirs that drink. It is that dude playing quarterback, the lefty, that is absolutely throwing darts downfield against really good opponents. Beat Oregon, okay? An Oregon team that many people think can make the college football playoff and probably would be the front runner to win the Pac-12 if they had not lost to Washington. Also, Washington put up 42 on a USC team that seems to be giving up everybody, something, but they did it. And at the time, USC wasn't even that great. Now we're talking about them beating up on a really good Utah team that we know is good, that we know the defense especially is good, and to be able to put up 400 plus yards of offense, have a 100-yard rushing or 300-yard passer, yeah, it feels like Washington goes undefeated, goes 12-0, wins the Pac-12 championship. It's going to be difficult to not include Michael Penix Jr. in New York, and he might absolutely walk away with that award. Number 4 on the list, staying in the Pac-12, Oregon quarterback Bo Nix, who is having the best season of his entire life right now, and his experience is really coming to bear. It was his 58th start last night against USC, and he had the kind of performance that we are so used to Caleb Williams showing. He had over 400 yards passing. He threw 2 passes to Troy Franklin. Troy Franklin had 147 yards receiving. Okay? Saw Ted Johnson go out. I want him to get back, but he's got weapons out there. Bucky Irving was limping, comes back in, still rushed for 100 yards. Got Jordan James back there. But Bo Nix is the dude that is running that offense that is so terribly efficient with Will Stein as offense coordinator. Another dude's probably a Broyles Award finalist. Another dude's probably going to be looking at a head coach job here not too long. But I can't overlook just how good this offense has been and how steady it's been. It's one thing for you to put 84 up on or 81 up on Portland State. It's quite another for you to be able to do what they did to Utah and what they did to, USC even last night. Again, I don't think that Oregon lost that game against Washington. I think Dan Lanning lost that game against Washington. And as good as Dan Lanning is, I don't think he's going to make that mistake twice. So you get them back in the Pac-12 title. They revenge their loss against Washington. It's going to be difficult to keep him out of New York, let alone have an outside shot to win the Heisman Trophy. I'm also going to say that the man married a lady whose last name was Smoke, and it was all there for him. Bo Smoke. I really wanted that to happen. But maybe, if they're thinking about it when they have kids, they'll work that in some kind of way. Number 3 on the list, we got to talk about this dude from LSU. All right, so Jaden Daniels is the reason we had to do this segment today. Because what Jaden Daniels did last night against hated foe, Florida, we had never seen in the history of the sport dating back 154 years now. That man threw for over 350 yards and rushed for over 200 yards. He had 606 yards of total offense, and he went 17 and 26 passing. 5 total TDs. Nobody has done that in the sport. And I don't know that there's anybody that doesn't like Jaden Daniels or doesn't like what Jaden Daniels has done both at Arizona State and LSU. As a matter of fact, the way to talk about Jaden Daniels is, you know how the NFL folks feel some kind of way about Josh Dobbs all of a sudden? We feel that way as a sport about Jaden Daniels, except our guy could actually win the Heisman Trophy. Now, for NFL fans, the Heisman Trophy is the most valuable player award in college football. I know that this is new to y'all because y'all only come around in April to pluck our best and most talented, but you should know Jaden Daniels is absolutely that dude. And on a team that, frankly, I didn't know they were going to be this good. Now, I didn't think they were going to be the top 5 team in the country and, show that against Florida State, but I certainly thought that they weren't going to really be in the hunt for a top 10 ranking at the end of the season. That's where they are. Because you're talking about losses to Florida State and a loss to Ole Miss win a thriller, and then a loss to Alabama, right? We all expect that those teams are good, right? One of those teams undefeated, one of those teams got one loss, and well, one of those things is Ole Miss, whose losses are Alabama and Georgia now. So LSU is a good football team, but they're greater because of him. Like, it is one thing for you to have Malik Neighbors out there. It's quite another for you to have Jayden Daniels finding ways to get up off the mat and go get you yards. Like, I fell in love with Jayden Daniels' game when he was at Arizona State. And the reason I loved it is because he did not turn the ball over. Like, I think he threw 2 interceptions in his entire time at Arizona State. He's been that guy for the most part at LSU, taking care of the football, making good decisions, and also laying it out. Like, the problem with Jayden Daniels and winning the Heisman is he goes out of the game against Alabama because he got ragdolled. If the offensive line at LSU was anything like good, maybe we're talking about Jayden Daniels staying in that game against Alabama, and maybe we're talking about LSU beating Alabama and win the SEC West title, in which case we're talking about Jayden Daniels really having a shot to win the Heisman Trophy. But it's real difficult to take 3 losses in the regular season and end up as the Heisman Trophy winner. But if anybody would be deserving of that award this year, kind of like Jalen Hurts a couple years ago, it's last year at Oklahoma, it would be Jayden Daniels. I think we feel that good about him, and his game has been so fantastic this season. Would really love to see him in New York with a shot to win this thing. But the guy that I got above him, I think showed what he is capable of because Jayden Daniels is across from him, and that is Jalen Milroe at Alabama. I've loved Jalen Milroe. I have said I've loved Jalen Milroe for the past 4 years. I even questioned, yo, dog, you really want to go to Texas? He's like, yeah, I want to go to Texas. And then Mike Yurcich, making it full circle, said he didn't want him at Texas. He ends up at Bama. Waits his term, gets into a QB derby where it wasn't even sure he was going to win it. Matter of fact, Nick Saban said, let the cake bake. Started Jalen Milroe. They took the loss against Texas. He got the bench against South Florida, of all people. You throw Tyler Buckner out there, find out he ain't it. Throw Ty Simpson out there, find out he ain't it. And who's the guy? Jalen Milroe, dude on the sideline who is greeting those guys each and every time they come off the field. You build the offense around what he is capable of doing against Mississippi State, and you never look back. And he has his best game until last week, or Saturday against Kentucky, against LSU, where he set the record for most rushing TDs in a single game by an Alabama quarterback with 4, in a game that was really about Jalen Milroe and Jayden Daniels. Like, as much as I wanted to make that game about, say, Dallas Turner and even Harold Perkins, who hadn't done as much as I thought he would do this year, it was really about those 2 quarterbacks and which one of those guys was going to have the ball last, because it felt like the first team to go up by 2 scores was going to win, and that's what happened. If Jayden Daniels didn't get knocked out of that game, does it change the outcome? I don't think so, but it certainly gives them a shot. And when you got a guy that can put up 350, 250, he's going to give you a shot. But what Jalen Milroe did against Kentucky basically builds on what he did against LSU. He had 6 total TDs against Kentucky in a game that was for something. Like, they put up 49 on Kentucky in a game that allowed them to clinch the SEC West. So we're talking about a guy who was benched in the middle of the year, who has now not even just willed his team into an SEC West division title and into the SEC championship game against Georgia, but they run the table the rest of the way. They're getting into the playoffs. If Jalen Milroe is the quarterback that leads Alabama past a Georgia team that will have won 29 straight, yeah, good luck not giving the Heisman Trophy to that guy, because the story's also going to be fantastic. But also, you stop Georgia. That would be the thing that I put on every poster everywhere. Jalen Milroe stopped Georgia. But he got to do that to win it, because that's what it's going to take for Jalen Milroe to win the Heisman Trophy. And frankly, that might not be enough, because the dude that won, absolute Martian. Marvin Harrison Jr. is the best player in college football. Like, I know they were playing Michigan State last night, and Michigan State ain't nobody, but you saw it against Penn State. You've seen it in winning time. You find a way to get 1/8 the ball. He's going to make sure you win the football game. Hey, dog, we ain't got nothing left. Travion Henderson can't get going. Maya Williams out for the season. Chip Trainum can't get going. We don't know what this offensive line is capable of. Hey, is 1/8 over there? Yeah, throw it up to him, but he double covered. Does it matter? No, it really doesn't matter, because if you throw it up to 1/8, the chances are he's going to come down with the rock. And he's going to come down with the rock when you absolutely have to score. But it's also what he's been doing consistently. It's not just that he tied David Boston's record for most 100-yard receiving games by a Buckeye. It's that he is the first Ohio State wide receiver to have back-to-back seasons of 1,000-yard receiving seasons ever. Now, a couple things taken into account here. Ohio State ain't make a habit of throwing the football before Ryan Day, and they ain't make a habit of creating great wide receivers until Brian Hartline, who's turning out mutants all of a sudden. Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave. I'm going to add here, Chris Olave showed up as a 3-star recruit and might end up making the Pro Bowl again. Garrett Wilson, 5-star, who said, I'm not going to Texas. I'm going to Ohio State. Why? Because I want to be developed. And he's been developed into one of the best wide receivers in the National Football League. The next guy on that list was supposed to be Jackson Smith and Jigba. He goes down early last year, and we get to see, that dude wearing 1-8. He's absolutely that dude. And with Kyle McCord back there, a guy he's been playing with since high school at St. Joe's Prep, you could see, Ryan Day and Kyle McCord going, why are we making this difficult on ourselves? Yes, the offense is not doing what we want it to do. But if we got 1-8 and you ain't, we're probably going to beat you. And that has been what it's been like for Ohio State, with a defense that frankly has been outstanding. No explosive plays allowed past 40 yards for that Ohio State defense, allowing for Marvin Harrison Jr. to do what he does. He can take over the game if you allow him, right? Other thing to add in here that I think is wild, it's not just that Marvin Harrison Jr. might be the greatest Ohio State wide receiver of all time. Like Terry Glenn won the Biletnikoff Award in 1995, and they ain't had one since. It's that Marvin Harrison Jr. is the best player on a team that has JT Tuimoloau, Travion Henderson, Cade Stover, Emeka Ibuka. My good, I keep going down the list here. Like, they're loaded all the way out, and everybody's looking at him the way that Dana Holgorsen used to look at Justin Blackman. Favorite story to go out on this part, but it pertains to Marvin Harrison Jr. So back when Justin Blackman was absolutely a mutant at Oklahoma State and Brandon Whedon was quarterback, they used to run the diamond formation where you got 4 backs in the backfield or 3 backs in the quarterback in the backfield and one-on-one on the outside, so they could get one-on-one on the outside for Justin Blackman, to which they still bracketed him, the defense did. And Brandon Whedon was like, I don't know where to go with the football. Justin is covered. To which Dana looked at Brandon, took a pause. If I was you, I just throw it up to Blackman and walked off. Next series, Brandon Whedon goes in there, throws a 50-50 ball up to Justin Blackman, who made that look like an 80-20 and took it to the house. That's who Marvin Harrison Jr. has been for Ohio State. So if Ohio State finishes this season undefeated, which means they beat Michigan, and they win a Big Ten title, yeah, that's the Heisman Trophy winner. A, he's done what he has done. B, they will have beaten the team that I think is the number 1 team in the country presently in Michigan. And C, they would be Ohio State. And that really does count for quite a bit inside of this here sport called college football. I know y'all hate to talk about blue bloods, because I used to hate to talk about blue bloods. But again, producer Cat getting in my ear very early when I got this job. RJ, I understand you are used to talking about sport the way you would want it to be. Expand the playoff, you cowards. I need you to talk about the sport the way that it is. And the way that it is, Ohio State carries a lot of momentum. And when you got a wide receiver doing what that dude is doing that nobody else has done at that particular school, you're going to get more attention than anybody else. And right now, Marvin Harrison Jr. deserves all of that attention, because not only is he the best player in the sport, there's a real conversation to be had now about, do you take him at 1 or Caleb Williams at 1?
If you like what you've seen, consider subscribing to the #1 college football show on YouTube, the Fox Sports app, or wherever you get your podcast.